Chavez with my good friend Carter Hexterer. I was originally supposed to do this podcast with my good friend other Christopher, but we were unable to do the time for that. But he did contribute to basically everything. All we needed to do was say the things in an hour-long podcast, but couldn't meet up with him. So, hello Carter. So, we're going to jump in right. We're going to jump in right now in drug abuse. Now, drug abuse and teenagers has been on the rise since the 70s due to the failure of the war on drugs, as it was one of the most ironic things in American history, as you know, drug levels actually rose when we criminalized drugs, as I think a major problem in the U.S. is that we start to criminalize things that we should be helping with people, as drug addiction should be really more considerate of a health issue than a criminal action issue. And so, with this, drugs have a reputation of being like kind of a rule breaker action, and so being something cool to do. And with teenagers wanting to feel, hey, I am relatable, I'm cool, I'm hip with the times, we see these teenagers out here on the street doing stuff like weed, and other kinds of things like LSD, or there's some other kind of drugs on the market.
So you're saying that addiction should be treated, not punished, and that we should try and present drugs in a more medicinal light.
Exactly. With and drug abuse, starting out young at an early age while your brain is still developing can be a major risk for your health in that down in the future and down the road. And with that, teenagers nowadays are really hurting themselves right doing these activities. And so but there are a few silver linings in this. Medical marijuana could be a help of sorts to teenagers who are really needing of it, but that's really the exception, not the rule. And so we got to understand that there also may be some little bit of benefits here, because we got a few folks that I know personally who overstressed out with medical issues, and have these mental health things, and marijuana helps with that. Drugs like marijuana, I believe, should be considered something like how alcohol is treated nowadays, where later in life, I think it's acceptable to have. Maybe at the age of 25, when your brain is fully developed.
But alcohol is still addictive and easy access as drugs for underage kids.
I mean, yeah, and that's a good point. Pretty touche, but I think drugs have a more damaging impact in a sense.
Well, alcohol in itself is a kind of drug.
Yeah, it is.
They're
And people have been abusing it.
They're different. Marijuana basically is like a substitution drug, where it substitutes for the natural was it serotonin levels, basically.
Yeah.
What your brain releases to make you pain patterns, numbness. Yeah. So marijuana disguises itself as that same natural chemical, but it's not. It's different. It's like you got a lot that fits in a door, but it doesn't fit quite right, and so it causes permanent damage to said lock mechanism.
Yeah. And it's not just that. Smoking, vape. That's also a thing. What I call it a drug, nicotine. Yeah, it is. And it's now nicotine. I feel like is way worse, because well, I guess it's way easier to access than marijuana is or alcohol because there's a bit more. You have to have someone who will be assisting you, like another third party, or vapes. In the same way, yeah, but I've known middle schoolers during my time who have been able to get easy access to those. And, from that experience, I feel like it's way easier to access those. And that's way worse because nicotine addiction could really ruin your lungs in the long term, as it's led into your lungs. And to combat that, I think is just that it's really hard to combat people underage acquiring these drugs, these bad products, as you can't just stop the selling of these, as well, adults want them, responsible adults, I would assume, want them. But
I think one thing they could do is stop marketing those directly to kids.
yeah, it's made it richer.
Like they started out with the vapes as flavored. They're sort of like flavored cigarettes.
Yeah.
They're fruity. It's like candy, and so it appeals obviously to the child to get vapes instead of cigarette. And it's like something you do out of habit, like chewing gum. But it's
way worse.
addictive. It's bad. You'll literally destroy your.
Yeah, like blueberry flavor, fruit flavor,
That's right.
and it's like they're intentionally marketing to children, and that is business-wise, it's pretty, capital marketism at its worst. Not saying, capitalism is bad, but it allows for behavior like this to happen, and that's why I think the nicotine brand is still here and around today in America. As well, if we wanted to, we could put a prohibition on it, but you've seen that before.
Yeah, prohibition itself doesn't work.
Yeah, I know it doesn't work because that actually makes it worse. Because if you restrain alcohol altogether or any other drug, then there is no limit on how that will work out. So, back when prohibition was in effect in the 1930s, you would see teenagers or younger folks drinking these illegal drugs or alcohol. Yeah, because there was no law saying that people this young can drink because there wasn't any.
Even though it's illegal for kids to have vapes or nicotine or alcohol, with prohibition in effect, the illegal selling of these things actually goes up because it's no longer legal. So to strip away entirely would actually increase the young population. It's like ability to get hold on it.
Exactly.
So having prohibition.
Sorry for being rudely interrupted by my own mother. We're back with your daily podcast with me and Carter Hexamer. We're talking about the effects that prohibition had and how it actually increased drug use in America with teenagers because there was no set limit with them. And so, alcohol use, yeah. Alcohol use, yeah. And with that, I think we're going to move on to our next subject, and that being suicide. Now, mental health in America, it's been a long battle, as people are not getting the help they need. Let's be realistic here, hotlines are not really the solution to these things, and teenagers are especially statistically on average to be more.
Statistically, teenagers actually are more likely to have diagnosed mental health issues.
Yeah.
And because of teenagers who are being developed, they show themselves in more spastic ways
Yeah.
as adults, and they're much harder to treat.
Exactly. As an example, my own stepbrother, we're pretty sure he has bipolar disorder, but we can't really afford to actually test that out. And so, we know he might have, but we can't afford it to get him help. And so, all we have is a school counselor. And that is not enough, because it isn't. It truly isn't. And he's having all these spasm attacks. And all of the things that come with it. Of, being moody and all that. With this condition that we assume he has. We do our best to get him help. We alert the school counselor whenever he starts cutting himself. Whenever, he's feeling down or just doesn't feel responsive or wants to do anything. But simply that isn't enough, and we can't really afford to get that. And so I think, underclass people, especially if you have a mental health issue as a teenager and your family cannot afford to get you help, then there's not really a solution for that at all, really, as much compared to other issues that could, be in effect. Because usually, from what I've heard from experiences from other friends, is that counselors are just really there to have students getting back to work on their schoolwork. And not really caring. I mean, yeah, to an extent they do care for your students' mental health, but they're only doing that so students can go back to getting to work and getting those grades up. Because that's what the school counselor's job is, to get the students back and up and ready to be fit to do schoolwork. And simply, you gotta consider in mind that these are people. These are not just people that all need to do is just get good grades and that's it. They have lives,
School counselors they aren't enough.
Yeah, that is.
Because they can't diagnose you. They don't have the degree to prescribe you drugs or any medicine to help you deal with your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
They basically just try and help you get back on track.
Yeah, but getting back on track school-wise isn't getting back on track home-wise.
That's right.
I mean, that's what the school counselor has done so far with my stepbrother. They got him back relatively to good schoolwork, but at home he's not well. And I think that's a real issue that our school, just not here in the MPS, but just in the nation as a whole, should really do. As students' mental health are continuing down the spiral. Suicide rates, which is what started the discussion, is on the rise with people nowadays. Overall feeling helpless and feeling alone in this dangerous world. As feeling like the world is already going downhill and that there is nothing that could really fix it. And we need to try to communicate with these folks that really need this help. And
I think the school should set up support groups.
yeah,
Places you can go after school if you're feeling they should have not a counselor, but an actual therapist.
yeah,
Come in for free so you can get treated. And I feel like you could help solve a lot of things.
yeah.
One thing for that is we don't have that in the budget.
Exactly. School funding. 20 years ago, Iowa was either number 1 or number 2 in education.
That's right. What are we now?
45.
That's right.
45 in education, because over those years we've cut our spending for education to put them more into protection with firefighters and policemen and job creation offers. And so with our schools now being a bit underfunded from over the years cutting that to putting in other things in our state, we are left with a school system that is underfunded in plenty of stuff, but it's...
That leads back to the mental health issues too.
Yeah.
Because there was a week, or a few days in a week, where they took. Do you remember they took away our chocolate milk?
Yeah.
They took away our chocolate milk. We couldn't afford chocolate milk for 3 days, but we're building a new Drake Stadium, a whole football stadium. With the money with which, if we spent that money elsewhere, we could put brand new tennis courts in every single one of the schools.
Exactly.
That's how much money. So it's not really a matter of funding; it's a matter of where the funding is going.
Yeah.
It's going into the places that the taxpayers want, and the taxpayers shouldn't have more say in student learning than the students themselves.
Because students, while they might not know everything, they know what's best for themselves.
They might not know what's best.
Well, like not themselves, like relatively so. I think
They
teachers. Yeah.
What helps them learn?
Yeah.
They know how and what works best, and they know what's best for them.
Yeah.
But they don't have a say in their own education.
And so, with that topic covered up of suicide and mental health, that perfectly transitions to our next issue: poverty. Poverty in America has, well, been on the rise, and, well, as we've seen, let's just say East High School is not the most suburbanized school in Iowa. Yeah. Yeah, we're poor. And we see that with us being considered, what was it, a Title I or a Title II school? A Title I or a Title II school?
No idea.
Yeah, but
I think East is the most diverse.
yeah, we're incredibly diverse, but with that, we're incredibly poor and so much less money.
That's right. Let's talk about with the Iowa assessments. The Iowa assessments are what a big part of what determines how much funding our school gets. Here on the Iowa assessments, we get more funding. That is ridiculous. The lower our scores are, the more funding we should get.
Yeah, but it works the opposite.
And therefore, you don't care. Like, you can't stop caring because we stop caring. You need to start caring more. The more time you put into something, the better the turnout's going to be.
Yeah, and
And that's, I don't know.
okay, here's the thing, and that's, I feel like it goes back to No Child Left Behind back in during the Bush era, where he signed that law and where determining on if students do well in school, the more funding that school should get, and vice versa. If they don't do well, the less funding they should get. And that's simply the most backward thing America has put in the law for our education system, because it sucked funding out of many schools that actually needed it and put it more into, well, not to say private school, but yeah. And you have an endless cycle of schools that need funding continuously, yearly, year after year, getting less funding because the students are not learning anything because they're not getting enough funding, and then you have an endless cycle of
That's right. And it's
Yeah.
not even just suburban schools. It's not private schools, right?
Yeah.
It's public schools in rich suburban areas that have higher property taxes, and so they get more funding because properties around the school cost more, and you can't pay if you're poor, if you don't have the job stability, or if you have a wealth of kids, if you have a lot of dependents, you can't afford always to live in that rich suburban area. So, and another thing, if you maybe you are living here illegally, maybe you don't have a green card. I'm just saying, like, if there's a wealth of reasons that you can't afford specific housing, but that doesn't mean the kid should stay.
yeah. And let's just say I know from experiences where don't give me that look. Where my family's been unable to get stuff for me because of reasons, of which I don't think I can legally explain to this podcast because I'm going to submit this to a teacher, and
Family can't get stuff.
she's a nice one. Hey, Miss Nano, you're listening to this. Yeah, we recognize you. Yeah, hope you don't tell that. That's some stuff. I'm an American citizen, by the way. I'm just saying that there's some other people I know that are not. My parents. She's nice.
Anyway,
She would understand.
Uh-huh.
And so with that, you know, I've, like with food stamps, didn't get a lot of those. Only from like neighbors who were kind enough to share because, growing up with a single mother for most of my childhood, it was very difficult for my mom to work. Like, she had to work daily on the double just so we can barely scrim by. And with that, it was not an... Okay, this is because it's not just the teenagers that are being affected by this, but also the parents, because they are being stressed out to death, especially if you can't get any benefits from the government because they're not legally classified as a U.S. citizen. And so, with that, I wouldn't say I was neglected because there was no other options. I was taken care of by the kids in my neighborhood, thankfully. I had a little group of friends who helped me out during my poverty days because they were also poor and had no one to look to in caretaking. So we just took care of ourselves in our little trailer park.
Well, that's the thing, because if you're on welfare and you're scrounging on food stamps to get by from the government, I have a family of 6. My dad makes a little over minimum wage. We can't afford a lot of nice things. We scrounge by, we save, we scrimmage, and they don't have the money or the time to worry about if the kids are being taught properly.
Yeah. Because all you care about is just getting by.
That's right.
At that point. And while their education not being neglected is not the first thing on priority, because what really is something that parents really just care about is just that they're being taken care of while they're at work or they're getting fed in school. And I was lucky enough to have be better than average in my elementary school to have a few opportunities open to me as a poor person growing up. And I think that really allowed me to, not have my parents worry about me too much, since I could take care of myself by middle school. I could take care of myself independently, where like they can leave me at home, not worried that their children are going to get kidnapped or anything because they don't have to defend themselves and whatnot. And being poor is just an experience that you really have to work for everything you got. And that really takes time away from schoolwork. The more advanced you go, in high school, schoolwork takes up a big chunk of that. But if you have other responsibilities to do, then that really hinders the schoolwork you might do. Because right now, my family is currently going through financial struggles, and so with that, I have less time to do schoolwork because my time has been taken up by doing all these other things where I barely have time to take breaks and do work. And so with that, greater responsibility is also put on these children who are poor if they have others to look after for responsibilities. And so with that, we me and my partner, my original partner, who I have to give thanks to for doing most of the research, set up a survey that people could take, and so far I think we had 15 responses. The big chunk of them said they wouldn't consider themselves poor, but to the ones they do, they've pointed out that their families, some of them have had their families have to like struggle to pick bills to pay. Should we pay for water bills or electricity bills and whatnot? As a question we left on our survey, and so or healthcare, or we've also seen that these poor people, have also said that they've had their schoolwork hindered by the greater responsibilities that they also have. And so, and also with the increase in family members, too. Most of these poor people that we surveyed that responded had a decent amount of family members in their household. I think even one response was like they had 9 people living in their own household and considered themselves poor, and so it's that too. So, a solution to this, it's really difficult with like I'm not gonna say that a majority of some minority groups can't get funding, but like there's a good chunk of there's too many children in our school district that are considered poor, and there's also a big chunk of those students who are poor who are unable to get funding because their parents are not from here, and that's mostly the Hispanic/Latino community, of which a big consensus of them are not from here in America, or not considered to be from here in America. And so a real solution to this problem is really difficult to get behind. So
I feel like if the school was allowed to their own years to raise funding for the school, if the students were allowed to raise funding or to hold fundraisers to hold money, or choose what their funding went to in their school, I feel like that's a good solution, or a possible solution to at least help get the school. I mean, a little bit more on track.
yeah. And what I think they could do is have more after school benefits, so where kids can stay after school, where their parents cannot be as stressed as much, where they could eat dinner or something, like kind of like a school welfare kind of deal at the school, where you can eat, take bags home, and eat at home with the school food you have. And that goes back to increased funding for poverty. So,
Or especially over the summer,
yeah,
when the students don't have breakfast or lunch that can be paid for by the school.
yeah,
School could maybe provide a meal for the day over the summer.
mm-hmm.
So you could just go in during the day.
Yeah,
The parents were struggling to feed their students.
yeah, and Wi-Fi. This is becoming more reliant on people nowadays, and so I feel like that should be. I'm pretty sure that's still allowed after school during the summer. They still pay for Wi-Fi, but unless not, then let's keep that open. Like a public library, they offer free Wi-Fi, and I would also suggest that.
That is actually another problem with our school's funding. Is we have a library,
Yeah,
but it can't be open all the time. We don't have a librarian.
yeah,
And the librarian at a school right now needs a master's degree.
yeah,
English teachers need a master's degree.
yeah. Okay, and that's an issue.
That's ridiculous. Because librarians need to be able to teach a specific type of library science, and that they need a master's degree. And that is ridiculous. And we don't apparently have the funding to even hire somebody with that degree.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. And so students don't have access to their own school library.
Yeah, and I think a proposed solution to this would be suggesting some new laws in the state legislature and whatnot. Policy changes in the Moline Public School District. We're having a new superintendent pretty soon. We can suggest it to him, so see how that goes. But see how the cookie crumbles, but poverty really a big problem with teenagers in America today. Hello, welcome back to the Assignment Podcast with me and Christopher this time. Yeah, I
What's
know.
up?
He's here this time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, my other friend isn't, because that was a one-time thing. Anyways, we last talked about, I believe, was, we talked about drug abuse and the implications of that, the solutions we came up with. And we also talked about poverty and suicide, mental abuse, that too. And so we're here to finish our other half of the podcast by discussing, firstly, with early sexual activity. Now, teenagers in America today are being exposed to adult material as young as ages of 9 to 11 is usually when modern children are statistically able to be
9 to 11.
yeah, are able to see these things,
To witness
to witness
the malware.
of pornography. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. And with that, it comes the growing up of kids and childhood ending too early for many, of which is a disappointment.
It really is.
Kids nowadays are being exposed to even more materials, of which encourages them a bit to partake in these activities.
Yeah, it can encourage them to partake in the activities because, obviously they're learning. Obviously, seeing these things on the internet, they get curious, so they start looking into it more and more. And obviously they're learning, bad things from it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're getting taught things that they shouldn't be knowing. So this can lead down to, the bad thing of early sexual activity,
Well, which
is early sexual activity.
well, you're making it sound like it was something even worse than that, but yeah. And kids nowadays growing up too fast, becoming more and more curious, as we've been repeating this whole time. Issues that occur with this are itself early sexual activity, and a loss of experience of childhood. There's a shorter time span of which children are innocent nowadays, and being exposed to this stuff can really affect how you play out as an adult later on in life. It could lead you to having the wrong inception on how these adult activities should proceed. And so, with this, I think you can't really control the internet. And that is something that is impossible with our current age. As technology expands, it's easy to lie about your age on the internet with a click of a button. It's simple as that. You can claim to be born in 1899 and you get away with it. It's not really a big restrictions on it, and restrictions have been an example of an attempt of this would be in France, in which they tried to limit the age experience of which by imposing a law that will make it only that adults legal, which I think was like 21, I believe, could access adult material and whatnot. But the ways of implicating this with like your driver's license or your ID number were so controversial that they didn't go ahead with this law because people, I mean, they did agree with the message behind it, but they weren't in alignment with the methods and to achieve it. And so it's a complicated issue of which you can't really satisfy everybody with a solution. And so,
Yeah, it's it is a big problem with the internet. You can't really limit what's going on there, and it leads to the consequences that is early pregnancy, especially with teens. But some of the consequences of this could be, early pregnancy, of course, STDs, all the expected outcomes. So that's a pretty bad thing that's going on right now.
So if we can't really limit their exposure to it, we might as well try and prevent the terrible things of early teen pregnancy and all that disease stuff. So
Yeah, because the internet is never going to be fully limited. So the only real way to, improve the issue is to, I guess, spread out more protection, if you know what I mean.
yeah, and I think an increase in funding and specifically in sex education and teaching some children, all these things about how our anatomy works, and also not just that, but also the social implications of it, of which this car is driving. Jesus, yeah, we get it. You have a car. You don't need to show off. Anyways, back to the daily podcast between me and Chris. And yeah, I think an increase in sex education should be something of discussion, but also not just that, but also the social aspects of it, of also consent, because if teens nowadays are getting their exposure of how sexual life works from pornography, then that's not really a realistic way of doing that.
It's not really realistic to what can happen in real life. They're learning unrealistic standards.
Yes, and like consensual stuff too, and that's an issue. You can't just whip out that and expect something positive to happen. There needs to be a communication between the two participating partners, and both partners need to be participating in agreement. It should be something that we should be teaching, that consent exists, and with that, the promotion of protection should be as well, and other options as well. And there is the dicey topic of abortions, yes, but with recent events happening which might limit that, and I will be in a somewhat conservative state,
We're not headed down the best path, right?
we're not heading the best path for early sexual activity and the prevention of teen pregnancies, that's for sure.
Yeah, we're really not. So
We're really not.
Yeah.
So proposed solutions are just increasing awareness of, what things might happen, the economic issues as well, like tell people that there are consequences to your actions in which you do decide to partake in this. And so, with that issue discussed, I think our next topic is social media addiction. What did you say, Chris?
So social media addiction. Social media addiction, it's a huge problem, especially nowadays, because with all these students addicted to social media, they might see something on there, like, for example, oh, this person didn't like my post, things like that, and it could affect you know, their mental life, their real life relationships, which I don't think should be a thing happening. Considering it's social media, it's not really, you shouldn't be worrying about it too much.
Yes, and that really ties back to mental health and, perception of how the world works. And I think teenagers don't often understand that when someone posts on their social media, they're mostly posting what they want people to see about them, not reality about.
Yeah, there's also that, because people gain unrealistic standards, like, oh, this person's having so much fun, you know.
And that's not often the case, That's not always the truth. As the standards of which how people's lives should be and how they are compared to what they actually are really just setting the bar to a height in which no one can really achieve. And so with that, you get a false perception of how the world might work with that. And with that, there's also just getting your information from social media alone is not always the most reliable thing. On the internet, what is different from fact from truth is often confusing, in which it's not, unless you're getting it from a verified source, you're not really sure about if something right or wrong. And in that case also, there's also being in a bubble, only seeing stuff you want to see and not seeing the whole truth, in which, when it comes to divisive topics, that is really something that brings the downfall of us as division, and tribalism forms from that. And you really have people who are down the path of which, of controversial opinions and having their opinions backed by things that, aren't even fact, but they think it is something that later in life really leads to the trouble of communities, not just here in Des Moines, but just across America in general. And with that, people get addicted to getting feedback. As a society, we like being perceived as positive people, and so with that, it often leads to us as people,
Yeah, people strive towards, these false goals, like gain more followers, gain more likes, more shares, whatever they say. Yeah, striving towards these goals, it could, get in the way of their learning. If they're too focused on their social media profile, gaining a big audience, at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. You should be studying, working on your grades.
Yeah, and it's also very unlikely. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's very unlikely that those people who are focusing on those goals will succeed in becoming some sort of content creator. You only see that with people who know what they're doing and stuff, and know the numbers of which you're coming from. And those are from individuals thinking outside the box. But we're talking about people who are within the system itself, in which follow the orders of which the standard method of how to interact on social media, in which those people are unlikely to actually succeed. And so, with that, and many other issues with social media addiction, there's not really a direct solution to this thing, because it's putting a barrier on teens, and when they can access the internet, it's even way more difficult than disallowing them to see pornography as before.
And with the barrier, they can just say, oh, I was born in 1899. I met Abraham Lincoln.
Yes.
Yeah, they're going to be, the internet is going to believe them.
Yes, it's really hard to enforce these restrictions. Companies are knowingly knowing that this is causing harm to them. Like Facebook, they're really aware that social media is bringing down the mental health of girls and other people. other people using the platform who are underage. And but they don't do anything about it because it makes them a profit with ads around your circle. As now that's a decent car.
Goddamn car.
It was a decent car. Well, I mean, the noise wasn't necessary at the end, but yeah. Now, I got a bit distracted there. We were talking about how difficult it was to find a solution to this, but also kind of want to go back a bit and how it affects teens' mental health and whatnot. As if all you're focused on is social media and not really focusing things on your grades and whatnot, that really also affects your personal life and how the people you interact with as well as.
Yeah, this also ties into like, you know, technology addiction, because they won't, like, especially during class, they'll keep on getting on their phone. They won't listen, they won't focus.
They have this false perception that that's the most important thing in the world, when in fact it is not. You know, it's truly devastating nowadays. And propose solutions to this whole thing. You know, you can try to limit people's phones, you can try to take away all you want, but at the end of the day, they're gonna get them back, and when they do, they're gonna be back on their phones, and you can only limit people so much before they get aggressive, in a sense, in that. Unless you make that straightforward. But I mean, there is no like perfect solution to this, as people will always find a way, like water, to get around.
There really isn't, right? I mean, I guess you could attend therapy, but that's a bit too excessive.
Not everybody can afford therapy.
Yeah.
At ease. Think about it. Like, we're not privileged in the slightest. I'm just saying. You know, it's like. And could the government do anything about it? They could try. People won't like it though, because of how
Not really.
divisive and tribalistic our political system is now today, thanks to social media as well. You know, it really ties back, and it's an endless cycle of it not getting better and better because of many reasons. Of many. And thinking that the world is inside of their pocket is a perception that it's really gonna doom us all. But
You know, the way we're headed in life, I'm kind of worried for future generations.
yes, and so propose solutions. More limitations on technology, of course, in public schools in Des Moines, yeah. And more parental control over these children.
Yeah, that's a big issue as well. I think parents need to start, you know, paying more attention.
Yeah, because teachers are not just like a daycare center for their parents to drop off their kids off to school. No, it's just a place to learn and communicate and build a community around. But you know, there are still further responsibilities than just having your kids get good grades. Also, with a sense of realism as well. And so, I'm not saying an all-down crackdown on social media because, okay, we get it, we got a card. I'm not saying a whole crackdown on technology because there are people out there in the real world who understand the implications of being on technology too much and do limit their own limitations by their own standards, of which I believe. I understand the things that technology can do and try to avoid the distraction of it as much as I can. But you know, there are moments where I do get distracted. But yeah.
No,
But
You
those,
know,
but
they're-
those are exceptions. They're not the rule.
Yeah, we all get distracted.
Yeah, I mean, it's just human nature. It's not. Yeah, I think we need to really put down and make kids nowadays understand that there are consequences to your actions, and you can't really make off of a living off of getting the most likes on a Twitter post or getting the most reposts on your Instagram story. No. You are most likely gonna become a statistical number. And all these people are caring about is just a number that the grand scheme of things is just a bunch of ones and zeros projecting on your LSD screens on your phone or computer or laptop just to give your head a bit of dopamine and keeping you driving forward towards something that isn't really important. And so, yeah, limit those who need limitation, but those who understand, let them keep their phones for a bit, I guess.
I guess, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. There's really no other way to put it.
yeah. Get rid of the bad apples, but still keep the tree. Because the tree is very important. And that's all we have to say about that. Hey, well, welcome back to the daily podcast with Chris and some other folks.
Welcome back.
Well, not the other Chris because, he wasn't here for the first half. That was filled up.
I apologize.
Yeah, but the 3 C's podcast because all the people had C's in their name. Me, Chris, and Carter. So that's what we're calling it now. Anyways, we're back in motion, and so with our final topic, violence. Yes, we did 6 of them, or other people did 1. Beta males, I say.
Beta males.
Yeah, we did 5, and then we went bonkers. We went cuckoo crazy for Cocoa Puffs, and we are not doing 6 of them.
I can tell.
Now, violence in teenagers nowadays in America. We, personal experience. You and I, we've seen a fair bit of violence happening.
Especially this year.
Yeah, especially this year at East High, we've seen a tremendous amount of violence happening to our community with fights and track shooting, of course,
Shootings, fights.
and that hidden drive recently
Yeah.
with Emma, I think. Yeah.
The hidden drive incident. That's sad.
Yes, that's pretty. It's been a disappointing year. Great loss of
Yeah.
students.
Let's hope for a better year next year, right?
Yes, we really hope so. But we've seen an increase of division. With the talked about tribalism once more. I'm not saying gang-like behavior, not to be
Yeah. Not to be like
discriminatory or be violent, but
Yeah.
that's the best way you can describe it.
gang-like behavior.
Yeah, with the shooting here at East, being a bias towards one student who didn't even go here, but yeah, they had some past experience with them, and shot that student from Lincoln,
Oh.
and past tensions, they seem to be exploded into proportions in which they really do not matter. As an example, people getting jumped for things they did in 6th grade or in
Oh, yeah.
elementary school. I have known some personal stories of that. Of people who've done mistakes in the past. They moved on, but people have grudges still. It's pretty.
It's pretty sad.
It's pretty sad. we're better than this. We're more mature than this. You know, we really could be doing better, but we're not. As us as teenagers here at East High, we're just Des Moines.
A district has done a good job at trying to restrict violence.
Yes, you know they have. You know, bump up security, but you know you can't just bump up security here at East High School. You must also, if you're gonna do that just because of the violence here, you must also do it everywhere
Yeah,
else.
you
because-
must do it at every single school, not just this one.
Because you're leaving other schools at more of a, not say disadvantage, but more of a, what's the word?
It's unfair, right?
It's unfair of it, you know, and, you know, you never know what could happen, you know, with the
Well-
recent here, huh?
Well, in the district,
Yeah.
they made a new rule, right? If you get into a physical altercation,
Yes.
you're gonna be switched to virtual campus
Yes.
temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that seems to have done a good job, considering nobody likes virtual.
Well, yeah, well, not everyone can say the same. You know, people excel in it, some people don't. I personally don't excel in it, virtual.
Me neither.
Yeah, I'm pretty terrible. First time I failed was in virtual times. Dark ages are over now, though, for most. But with that comes the reconnecting and re-enemizing of people. Re-enemizing? Is that even a word? I don't know. I don't know. This is the podcast, okay? Words can be made up. Here, all words are made up. All words are made up. And we're getting off track. Hey-yo. Violence. Teenagers. Terrible. Terrible. Because of us not learning how to communicate between each other, you know, talk things out. You know, it seems to be an issue that most of us have lost.
There's also, like we mentioned before, there's gang activity, which mostly rises from poverty,
Yes.
which is another one of our topics.
Yes, with poverty, and that leads back to our social tribalism behavior of media, social media, and, you know, all that. And with this increased violence, you know, it could also be it could be attributed back to drugs.
Yes,
In a
it can.
sense, you know, with people, you know, taking them. I'm really trying not to be stereotypical here, but there's no really better way to put this at right now. And as we've seen with our community, we've
Here in Des Moines.
here in Des Moines. I mean, in the metropolitan area, you're expected to have the highest crime in the state because
Yeah,
with
that's
any
true.
other state, the highest population centers are usually the places with the highest crime. Yes, but that's a bit disproportionate, I guess, because the increased level of it over the past few years is immense. It's become normal for people to see something like a fight happen. It's like not shocking anymore. It's not really.
Like you're not really phased by it. It's just a normal occurrence, everyday occurrence.
It's and we publicly praise it too. You know,
Yeah, I
record
don't-
it, whatnot.
I don't understand that. Like,
Aspect.
there's a fight. Like, let's say there's a fight happening. There's always like at least 20 people swarming the area with their phones out.
Yeah.
I don't understand why that happens.
And like some people are rooting them on, and that's like kind of like the kind of behavior that
Yeah, that's the
endures.
reason all this keeps on happening.
Is that, you know, fights have this reputation of being something that I wouldn't say people want, but like it's a watching event thing more than anything else. And you know, with the what was that?
Trump?
No.
Oh
It's like-
God.
No, I mean political, yeah, like tribalism. That leads back to tribalism, but that's not our main discussion. Politics, a bit affects us. The tribalism behavior, you know, people have different opinions, but people nowadays don't like agree to disagree. Nowadays, it's more about if you are not aligned with me, you are my enemy, and we really need to stop having that mentality towards how other people think, because just because you don't agree with it necessarily doesn't mean it's the terrible thing to think or do. I mean, yeah, there's
Yeah.
some instances where like outcasting of certain behaviors is acceptable, you know, with heinous acts, of course.
Mhm.
But like, even then, you need evidence to prove that, you know, an innocent till guilty is my subject matter to everything that I treat towards people. You know, I managed to get people to at least see my point. Though they disagree, but we agreed.
Yeah, you might not agree with everybody, but it doesn't mean the opposite side. I mean, the opposite side is necessarily bad. Right?
Yeah, and I really think that's like our core issue nowadays. As
Yeah.
not core, but like one of the biggest issues should be not just us as teenagers, but adults in general. And you know, it could be we could go back to talking about the tribalism behavior in social media as teenagers form to become their own person. You know, not children anymore, but people. You know, and take up uprising to authority. You're going to see an increase, at least in some kind of violence of some sort. You know, feeling independent, feeling like they're the center, or like
You know,
they're taking action, huh?
People have been, talking a lot about Kim Reynolds, blaming her. What do you have to say about that?
We're talking about violence.
I know, but people have been going after Kim Reynolds.
Well, that's more like, that's like more of the blame game. That's
Yeah.
just more of like putting the blame on someone.
Mhm.
I mean, could she be attributed to most of our issues? Yeah. But is she like the direct cause, like everything she does? Well, not necessarily, but could be. Though that is a more political question than anything else. And in our podcast of the 3 C's, that's what I'm going in now.
The 3 C's.
Yeah, well, the other guy isn't here. But, yeah. And this can really be also attributed to how students, as I said before, feel more independent, or skipping classes and all that fun stuff, being outside. And,
Independency is good, not when it gets to this extent.
yeah, and that's just like in general with society. People feel independent and they feel important, and yet they feel like they can do most things, and at least a bunch of things. Gun violence too, which is a subject that I haven't really talked much about. But isn't it? It is something that we need to discuss. That it goes back to suicide and mental health issues, as someone could be feeling to do harmful acts against other students and be needing to put that anger and rage into other
Yeah,
people.
it all
And
comes down to, drugs, poverty, problems like that.
yeah, and that's like a mental health thing. But also, that's why people bully us too. Another violence.
Yeah, just, as a coping mechanism.
As a coping mechanism, yes, of course. And that's not enough funding into our institutions. Poverty. Once more, it's always everything here is connected with at least one thing. And with that in mind, a proposed solution to solving all this recent violence here at East, or just Des Moines, this metro area, the MPS, really bump up security,
Yeah, because these past, during this time, the violence has really increased, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure why, but it's probably because of, drugs, gang violence.
Mm-hmm.
Just general crime, or crime in general has been spiking up recently.
Yeah.
So
Poverty.
So if it's due to poverty and to drugs, if we were to solve those problems by themselves, I'm guessing we need more government assistance.
Yes. And what kind of government? Like, what could the government do? Yeah.
They could, like for example, Kim Reynolds, she could sign like a bill or something.
The legislator would have to get that passed.
Something like that.
To do what?
Well, the most reasonable option would be something to help, those in poverty. But that's kind of like a left-leaning thing. Yeah.
And taxes is something that we don't like to spend, or
Mhm.
Reynolds doesn't like to spend.
Yeah.
And so, you think that we should, for a solution to live down our violence is that you're saying that we need to have more left people in power?
Well, we could also, people could, raise awareness. But I don't think that will do much.
We've always been raising awareness.
Yeah, we've always been raising awareness.
But that doesn't help.
Yeah, exactly.
Gun violence, yeah, people are aware of it, but you think people are trying to do something about it? No, not with our current Congress. Or, because of the divisiveness of people not getting things done because, people can't agree on something. And, people who don't have power have power.
Mhm.
But I think this, at least something that would help towards the solution of violence would be,
Maybe just increase the security in general.
increase security, increase funding.
Funding, yeah.
Increase funding in our school systems and mental health institutions.
Yeah, that's a
More
serious
accessible.
Mental health, funding,
Yes.
more security.
And more better. And I think ourselves just need to have a more of an open mind towards things. Though
Yeah.
people might not like to hear that, though it is something that they need to hear. And so just communication is
Or,
just the bare bones.
The truth
so-
hurts.
The truth hurts, yes. And with that segment done, we're done with the podcast. We're done with the project. We just need to edit this. This is probably gonna get cut out. This last part, who knows? I might keep it in.
I have an idea. We should edit it over some fun gaming footage.
Yes,
Something interesting to
like
catch
a
the viewers' attention.
Minecraft kind of Fortnite kind of COD.
Something like that.
Yeah, like Yoshi's Island kind of gameplay.
Sure, that works.
Alright, so we're done. We're out. Peace out from the PCs. I'm representing all of you.
Goodbye.
And this is pretend this is Carter. This piece of paper. Yeah, goodbye.